So glad you're here because today we're looking at some source material that completely, and I mean completely, shifts how we look at brain health. We're going to shatter a massive medical myth right now and give you the tools that could literally save your life or the life of someone you love. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so think about this for a second. Is a stroke a sudden strike out of nowhere, or is it actually a predictable event? I absolutely love starting with this question. It completely challenges that terrifying myth that strokes just hit you like a lightning bolt from a clear blue sky with zero warning. Well, the truth we found in the source material is that a stroke is usually the predictable endpoint of blood vessels that have been degrading for years. And hey, if something's predictable, it's at least partly preventable, right?
The source hits us immediately with this staggering reality to show just how urgent this whole thing is. Every 40 seconds, someone on the planet has a stroke. Seriously, by the time I finish this sentence, another brain has been hit. It's the second leading cause of death worldwide and the #1 reason for permanent disability. So yeah, this is an absolute race against time.
Now, to understand this, you gotta know there are two main types of strokes. On one side, we've got the hemorrhagic stroke. That's where a blood vessel actually bursts and physically compresses the brain tissue. On the other side is the ischemic stroke, where a vessel gets totally blocked and starves the brain cells of their fuel. Both are absolutely devastating, but the source material really asks us to focus on that ischemic type today. And here's why. Ischemic strokes, those blockages, make up roughly 85% of all stroke cases. You know, your brain is a uniquely demanding organ. It's only about 2% of your body weight, but it hogs 20% of your oxygen and 25% of your blood glucose. If that fuel line gets blocked during an ischemic stroke, those brain cells start dying in just 4 to 6 minutes. It is literally a frantic race to save brain tissue before it's gone for good.
Section 1. The 72-hour warning window.
So before a massive blockage actually happens, your body actually tries to warn you. In the medical world, this early warning shot is called a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. I want you to think of a TIA as a final fire alarm from your brain. An artery briefly spasms or gets plugged, a specific part of your brain essentially blacks out, and you experience a stroke symptom. But here's the kicker, and why it's so incredibly dangerous. The spasm relaxes, blood flow returns, and the symptom usually fades away in under 10 minutes. Because it passes so quickly, most people just talk themselves out of taking it seriously. They brush it off.
But the crucial point here is what happens next. Research shows that a major, full-blown ischemic stroke typically follows a TIA within the next 72 hours. Yep, you heard that right. You have exactly 3 days, a very specific, critical window where disaster can still be prevented. Your brain is sending you a crystal-clear message saying, hey, I'm about to be in serious trouble here.
Section 2. The 5 critical warning signs.
All right, the first warning sign to look out for is temporary blindness in just one eye. Imagine you're just walking into the kitchen, and suddenly it's like a black curtain gets pulled down or this thick gray mud is smeared right over your vision. This happens when a tiny clot or a piece of plaque breaks off and temporarily plugs the specific artery feeding your eye. It is a massive red flag that the very next clot could go just a couple of millimeters to the side directly into your brain.
The second sign is sudden numbness or tingling on just one side of your body. Your arm, your hand, or maybe your face might suddenly act drunk, feeling all rubbery or like intense pins and needles. And look, this isn't like simply sleeping on your arm funny and pinching a nerve. This sudden one-sided numbness comes directly from a temporary glitch in the specific hemisphere of your brain that maps your physical sensation.
Sign number 3 is what's known as the drunk walk. Picture this, you're walking on a totally flat, familiar surface, and out of nowhere you lose coordination. You stagger into a wall, or you feel this violent dizziness, and you haven't had a single drop of alcohol. This shows that your cerebellum, that small extra brain at the back of your skull that controls your balance, well, it's glitching out because its vital blood supply just dropped sharply for a second.
The fourth sign is a sudden speech breakdown. Now, this happens in one of two ways depending on which brain area actually loses blood. If it's Broca's area, you know exactly what you want to say, but the words just come out completely slurred, or they get physically stuck in your mouth. On the flip side, if it's Wernicke's area, your speech might flow smoothly, but you're speaking complete word salad, just absolute nonsense, and you can't understand what anyone else is saying either.
Now, the fifth sign is a really surprising combination. Vitiligo combined with new, unusually intense headaches. Vitiligo is that condition where patches of skin lose their pigment. It's actually an autoimmune process. If this suddenly shows up paired with new, severe headaches, it strongly suggests your immune system might be off target and is quietly inflaming the inner lining of your blood vessels too.
Section 3. Enemies of your arteries.
Okay, so think of your blood vessel's inner lining, the endothelium, like a super smooth, non-stick pan. When it's healthy, blood just glides right by, easy. But when it gets damaged by inflammation, it becomes rough, scarred, and incredibly sticky. Things like cholesterol and platelets start actively clinging to those scars, forming those dangerous plaques that narrow your arteries over time.
So what exactly is scratching up that nonstick pan? Well, the primary culprits are chronically high blood sugar, which literally starves and scars those lining cells, and of course, smoking. But the third one here, this is a fascinating paradox. Nighttime blood pressure drops. While we constantly worry about high blood pressure, ischemic strokes often happen when your pressure naturally dips 15 to 20% while you're sleeping. If you already have a plaque-narrowed artery, that completely normal drop in pressure can suddenly halt the blood flow completely. Crazy, right?
And speaking of smoking, get this, 2 to 4. That is the exact multiplier of ischemic stroke risk for smokers compared to non-smokers. And here's the really wild part. This is true even if they have the exact same blood pressure and cholesterol numbers. With every single cigarette, toxic compounds chemically damage the vessel walls while simultaneously making the blood thicker and stickier. It is literally the perfect recipe for a deadly clot.
Section 4. The ultimate action plan. Okay, now that we understand those terrifying warning signs and the microscopic root causes, let's talk about exactly what you absolutely must do if you find yourself inside that critical 72-hour window. If a warning sign hits, these 4 immediate steps are vital. First up, do not drive yourself. I mean it. Losing your vision or motor control at highway speeds is lethal. Second, measure your blood pressure immediately. Third, lie flat with your legs slightly raised. This maximizes blood flow up to your brain and eases your heart's workload. And fourth, this is huge. Whatever you do, do not self-medicate.
Now, regarding that blood pressure check, here are the specific numbers you need to watch. If your top systolic pressure hits 180 or higher and your bottom diastolic hits 110 or higher, that perfectly fits the picture of a hypertensive crisis. Listen, this is an active medical emergency all on its own, and standard guidelines recommend calling emergency services right away. Do not wait.
And let's circle back to that 4th step. Never start blood-thinning drugs like aspirin on your own just based on a hunch. This is such a crucial takeaway. Remember those hemorrhagic strokes we talked about earlier, the bleeding kind? Well, if you are unknowingly having one of those, popping blood thinners will make the bleeding faster, larger, and way more deadly. Only a brain scan at a proper hospital can tell you for sure which type of stroke you're actually having. Finally, once you are safely at the hospital with a medical team, do not let them just send you home if your symptoms faded. The source material outlines 3 specific evaluations you need to ask for. First, a carotid duplex ultrasound to check for severe plaque buildup in your neck. Second, an HbA1c blood test to catch any hidden vessel-damaging blood sugar issues. And third, a Holter monitor, which is a 24-hour ECG, to catch hidden, chaotic heart rhythms like atrial fibrillation, which are notorious for forming deadly blood clots.
It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? But as this explainer clearly proves, you don't have to just sit around waiting to be a victim of a sudden lightning bolt. Understanding these physical signs gives you the active power to actually beat the ticking clock, ask your doctors the right questions, and protect your brain. So armed with all this new knowledge, if the fire alarm ever sounds, will you be ready?